Okay, hi guys, welcome to the email writing guide. This will be the second video on the virtual learning series on writing guides in general. In this video, we'll be covering a few tips and tricks on how to write good emails. So that'll include the structure and as well as a few do's and don'ts and common mistakes that people make. So the general structure of an email is quite simple. What you're gonna see is that there is often a subject, a greeting. So dear John, and then you introduce yourself in the greeting. You have your body, which is where your main ideas, your main plan, the main text of the email is gonna be. And then lastly, you have the signature, which is sake of formality. So it's almost saying, hope to hear from you soon, kind regards, and then you write your name. For example, Zilong Lin. Um, Even though the greeting and the signature might seem to be unnecessary when you're in a rush, it's always important for you to keep it there since it makes a firm impression. It shows that you took some time when writing this email, and just as how when you first meet a person or when you see a person in the corridor and you want to talk to them, you don't just go to them and say the body of your idea straight away. No matter how rushed it might be, you always say hi, how you been, and then you end with a signature. And it's human communication, so it's really important for you to write a greeting and signature. But I think most important of all is to know what type of greetings to use and what type of signatures to end your emails with. It all varies depending on, say, the formality or the type of person or the purpose of the email. So understanding the right situations to use the right greetings allows you to really stand apart. The subject, I think, so the subject is basically the first line of text that appears when you see something on your email inbox. It's the one in bold, and it's the one that really decides whether your email is read or not. So making sure that your subject is engaging and tells a bit about what's gonna be in the email, and making it more interactive and less bland really allows people to take your email at a more important value. So a few tips in the subject writing will be discussed later in the video, but putting a big emphasis on writing a good subject will make sure that sometimes when you send your proposal, it will be read. Sometimes when you send your request for a recommendation letter from a professor, it will also be read. So having a good subject makes you stand out from a cluttered inbox, and that perhaps for many people is more important than the email itself. So as we talked about how we had to make use of greetings and signatures, here's going to be a few examples of greetings and signatures that you can use. So greetings. So say for example you have Dear John, you're writing to a person, and here's some greetings that you may have. Hope you're doing well. How is the project? So how is the marketing scheme going? How is the budget proposal going? Just greeting is really, it allows you to show first and foremost the purpose of your email without really getting too much into the details to the point that it might come across as being rude or too abrupt. I'll keep this short since you get many emails. This is something that's nice and snappy that you can use when it's more, more casual. You definitely wouldn't want to send this to a more formal occasion, but if it's more casual and you're keeping it simple and keeping it, playful, this is something that you can use. And the fact that how honest this greeting is, it often works really well as a starter, as a greeting for emails when you're talking to, say, your colleague and so on. Dear John, I'm inquiring about this is definitely more formal. Say, for example, you want to know more about the fee structure or of a campaign, or you want to know more about a product that you want to buy online, and you're talking to the shop owner, you're inquiring about something, you're asking about something. The way that you write it more formally really makes them take you seriously, and it also shows that you're keeping the formality. So it's a nice way for you to keep on track. And obviously the classic, good morning. Dear John, good morning. This is definitely on a more personal basis. You probably wouldn't really say this to say you were trying to buy something online and you're talking to customer support. But good morning is definitely something that's more personal. You might send it to a professor. And in general, greetings are just a really good way for you to get into the body of your email without being too, as I said, too rude or too abrupt. And it can really set a tone about your email. If you write, say, I'm inquiring about, it sets a formal tone and allows them to know, okay, they're expecting something more serious, something more professional from me. So the reader themselves are going to respond you with that. If you want it to be a bit, more casual, then of course I'll keep this short since you get many emails. It's a great way to get started. But of course, there are also situations where you might not really know the person that you're talking to. So say you're emailing an airline company or you're emailing a hotel chain about a reservation. If you don't know anybody there or you don't really know who's going to be responding to your email, then of course the starter of your heading changes. Instead of Dear John, you write to whom it may concern, right? So when you don't know who's going to be receiving your email, say to whom it may concern, to whom it will receive my email. And because to whom it may concern is definitely less personal since you don't really know what you're talking about, a few of the greetings kind of fall out of use because of it's too personal for it. And these are like, hope you're doing well, or how is something going, since you're not really talking to an exact person. And this really just leaves you with two options. I'm inquiring about, so to whom it may concern, I'm inquiring about this project, or good morning. It's classy, can be used for everything. Now we're coming to signatures. Signatures are often after you finish your body of text, and that's when you see the little chunk of text saying thank you very much, and then you include all the information and so on. So a few signatures that you may use. Kind regards. I use this the most myself. It's just simple. It might be a bit bland sometimes, but when you really want to be safe, then sorry, and because you're not really sure about the formality's sake, just use kind regards. It can be used for anything really. Best wishes, that's a more friendly way, best wishes, and then you write your name, Zilong Lin. Thanks in advance. If you're asking a favor, and that's one thing that you have to keep in mind in email, in terms of the signatures and also the greetings. The signatures really change depending on the purpose of the email. So say if you're asking for a favor, all three are adequate, but thanks in advance, it just really brings about more friendliness to the cause and, makes it more suiting, makes the email feel more cohesive in its idea. Or yours faithfully, and this is one that you should pay particular attention towards. Yours faithfully is normally used when you don't know the person that you're writing it to, so there is definitely a trust within it, right? That's why you use faithfully. There is a faith between you. So yours faithfully is definitely often used together with to whom it concerns. So to whom it may concern, you go into your body of the text, you want to end it, yours faithfully, Zilong Lin. When you don't know the person, when you don't know who you're writing to, yours faithfully is normally the one to use. And of course, there's also yours sincerely, and you can use that for anything. It's only yours faithfully that applies specifically. So I think in general, signatures and greetings are a great way for you to segue in and segue out of your body of the text. So making sure that they match the purpose of your text, make sure that it's a very small change. It only takes a few seconds for you to make those changes, but it brings about just such a big improvement in the cohesiveness of your email. And make sure that your idea is consistent throughout. That's definitely going to be something that a lot of prospective employers, a lot of prospective partners will be looking for in your writing style, because it indicates a lot about your character and just how well you can write. So better just spend a few more seconds tweaking, changing your signatures, so that when you're asking for help or asking for a proposal, you say thanks in advance. When you're say checking up on somebody, you say best wishes. When you don't know somebody, you say yours faithfully. It makes sure that your whole text just holds up together well and gets the idea carried through. So yeah, don't miss out on signatures and greetings. They're very important. So now that we have done that, let's look at let's look at the sample email that I've written. In general, I think a big tip that you that you can take when you're looking at writing emails is that really think of writing emails more than writing a mail. So, the ones that you write on pen and paper, than say you're texting. So you want to include all the information, all the questions that you may have into one section, and also leave a course of action. So, okay, thank you for reading this email. Please check up on me, or please call me so that we can arrange a meeting. A course of action for what they can do later. Because if you think back in the time when you're writing mails, you're writing it, you're probably expecting a response a few days later, so you really want to pack in all the information there. It's think of it as a mail. Will it really help you to make sure that it stays together cleanly? It's the most convenient it is for other people to read, because these days a text, you can correct everything that you've sent. If there was a mistake, like, write it in shortened text and explain it later, right? But if you write like that in an email where you use too many, like, three dots, dot, 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 or use too many simplifications, it's definitely gonna dilute your idea and make you sound much less casual. So if you think of it in a more archaic way, really see emails as if you're writing mail, and it helps. Make sure that you're not repeating things, make sure that you included everything and you're making everything the most convenient. Now let's go into the email. So the header, let's collaborate, emerging market coffee. Hi John, having had plenty of time to think through your proposal, I think collaboration will be the most natural step to take, and perhaps the most eventful step. This is now the time to take our experience to the field. I'll be visiting sustainable coffee farms in Guatemala. To understand what we will be working on, I'd like you to join me as well. Please let me know how this sounds. I'll also like to meet again to go over the finer details of our collaboration. Tell me when you're free. Kind regards, Zilun Lin. So let's think through this email first, and in general what it's done and whether it's effective or not. The first thing that I'd like you to pay attention to is the header. The header, there's a good tip for you to make a header more engaging. So I could have written this header as emergent market coffee collaboration, but that doesn't really sound as interesting or as engaging. It doesn't really invite you to click on it as let's collaborate hyphen emergent market coffee. What this header breaks down into is that there's an action term, there's a verb that begins let's collaborate. You catch their ideas first, you hook them first, and then you give them a bit more information as to what this is. Because if you just had let's collaborate, no emergent market coffee, they might think you're a scam and so on. So that's not really the right image that you want to go. But catch your attention first with an action word, with a verb, and then bring in a bit more information and more compact size, so they say, there you go, that's the collaboration that you're talking about. One thing that you might see at the greeting that might be a bit different is that I used hi John instead of dear John. Well, hi John is definitely something that you can use, like hi in general is something that you can use when it's more casual, and as long as you don't make the body too casual, hi John is perfectly fine to use. It shows that you have a more casual side, but at the same time you maintain it professionally. So it's really maintaining a balance. You don't want to sound too strict and cold-faced with all of these really strong formalities, because that's going to come across as too boring. So having a good 21st century balance in the way that you conduct things, or you break down the barriers between social formalities, is definitely a refreshing way for you to write an email. So consider that as well. One thing that you might see is that the greeting was not really generally what we introduced about. So here the greeting is, haven't had plenty of time to think through your proposal. I think collaboration will be the most natural step to take. Please realize that a greeting does not really have to follow a set structure. There's not really a list of greetings that everybody has to use. The main deal of the greeting is that you want to contextualize your email to a personal relationship that you may have. Because, just like a business proposal, email is also a personal relationship. So the way that so the greeting is a good way for you to make that personal relationship. So that can be you relating to your past experience. So thinking through your proposal, you're relating to perhaps a week ago when he showed you the proposal, you make that personal connection. Or you can say good morning, or you can ask how's the weather in London. It's really like a personal connection. So there's any way that you make that connection, you can write it any way that you want the greeting. The body, so this is now the time to take your experience to the field. I'll be visiting sustainable coffee farms in Guatemala, And then please let me know how this sounds. I'll also like to meet again to go over the finer details. So it introduces, so if you see how the email is clearly structured, where there's a separate paragraph for each different part of an email, this is also something that you should try to do so that people can follow your ideas easier, especially when they're quite a big block of text. This middle block is the main body, so what you have thought and so on. But the last block is also very important. It gives them a course of action of what to do following this email, because this is exactly what you do if you're writing a mail. You ask them how they are, you talk a bit about your main idea, and ask them how to follow up with you. Right? You probably wouldn't do this in text, but doing things like you're writing email will definitely help your email. So you generally, the following course of action, you tell them, please, what you will do, what you would like to do afterwards to continue this correspondence, and just a few formalities. So like, tell me when you're free. And the greeting itself and the signature itself is very simple. Kind regards. You can maybe even change it to yours sincerely and so on. In general, after you have learned how to structure your email correctly, that's when you can have a bit more fun, show a bit more of your personality. Because when you just show your personality without having a fit structure, people can often take the wrong impression and think that you're not taking things seriously. Because if you see texts that are just clumped together in very simplified terms, it doesn't really bring a good first impression. Having a good structure makes sure that you have a good first impression, that they know that you're reliable. And that gives you the room and also the trust to make your email more engaging, which is of course very important. So here's a few tips on how to make your email a bit more engaging. One of the few things is that if you don't know the person, you can introduce yourself so that they know that there's a person behind this email. It's not a robot. It's not a no reply. And introduce yourself shortly, and that really makes it more engaging since it's a personal connection. Another way, if you know the person, include some relatable anecdotes in the beginning of the email. So say, for example, hope the weather is not too rainy in London. You know, something that's not too, you don't want it to be too offensive or too sharp. You just want it to be casual so that it relates to your past experiences and make them feel like, oh, they still remember me, you know? Or thinking through your proposal and so on. That it's a way for you to introduce a bit of anecdote and make them realize that I'm not just a part of a big email chain. He actually took the time, or maybe not, but he took the time to write this email just for me, so it's definitely more engaging. A few of the other ways, it's definitely in the way that you write your email. So as I said, to strike a balance between, you know, a few of the formalities that you must include, but also keeping a sharp and also really alert tone. So that can be done by having a more casual tone whenever it's applicable, because an email is definitely, you know, should reflect the way that you speak. And if you have a bit more character in the way that you speak, feel free to show it. As long as you have a respectable structure and a respectable format, there's a lot of room for you to show your creativity in the way that you write. And yeah, in general, just make the person feel the email, especially for them. You know, you can include their name in their email. So how does this sound to you, John? And so on, so that they know I'm not a part of a big email chain. It's not a no reply email. So it makes it more engaging. And of course, start your subject line with a verb, you know, let's, or dine with a famous baseball player, you know, opportunity in New York for promotion. You know, that's some ways for you to include a subject line with a verb and then slowly get a bit of information. But of course, you don't want your subject line to be too big. So make sure that as long as it fits, because when you open your phone, you can see your emails, and you can see more or less how many words a subject line can have before it gets cut off. That's around how many words you want it to be. So keep it short and snappy. And in general, after seeing the email proposal guide, here's a few do's and don'ts that you might want to have. Do address the recipient by their title if they have one. So instead of saying Dear John, you can say Dear Professor John, or Dear Professor Hoskins, if that's their surname, or Dr., Mr. If they write it, and if you know more or less their title, it's always a good idea to include it as a sign of respect and formality. do present a course of action for a follow-up email. So that's basically saying, please call me in the next few days so we can discuss this and the finer details, or please tell me when we can arrange a meeting, or please make sure that you complete the poster by Wednesday, and so on. It tells them what to do. It's something that you'll include in mail, so it's definitely something that you should also include in an email. Do organize all your inquiries into a single email. That's a mistake that I used to do a lot, is that I would talk to a lot of, say, I'll have some inquiries about like online shopping or to a hotel, and I'll ask one question at a time because I thought it might be too rude for me to give them a laundry list. But if you think about it, it's more convenient for the both of you if you include all the questions that you have in all the emails, right? Because because there's a sorry, because there's a big significant time gap between when you get the email, when you send the email, and when you get a reply. So if you ask one question at a time, you might finish this at the end and you drag it out for a month. Both of you are losing time. So if you think of it as a mail where you have to keep everything very organized and clean, also add all your inquiries in a presentable format. So maybe in a list, don't keep it all together in one block. In a list, and ask them in a single email, so it's the most convenient for both of you. Do introduce yourself first if it's your first contact. So there was this one time where my teacher introduced me to a person where I could get some information for an internship. But if I just wrote an email asking for help for an internship, they might think where you're coming from. But say in the beginning of the email, we say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Hawkins. I was referred by Miss Blair to come to you. So please, could you offer me some help regarding this internship?" So introducing yourself might not just be saying who you are, but also who referred you to them, who referred them to you, right? So who's the common point of contact between you, and that's a good way for them to know that you're not a scam email. And also, to make the subject line also engaging, do use the subject line to tell them what's inside the email. So say, for example, if we go back here, actually, if you go to the subject line, you can see how it's "let's collaborate," it's the hook, but then "emerging market coffee" tells them a bit what's inside the email. Or you can also write 50% discount coupon included. Keep on, the main point is you want to keep them engaged and wanting to click on your email, and also want them to know what's in your email so that it's worth their time to click it. So it's really striking a balance between detail and also engagement. A few things that you shouldn't do in an email: don't make subject lines that are too cluttered, or too long, or too boring. Don't make your email too long, that's as well. But when you have to make an email too long, it's always helpful for you to keep the email as more, you're writing a mail, right? So you keep it more as like the personal connection of things and introducing briefly. And then if you have to, append the long document as a PDF for them. Right? Just like how you would send a mail. You send, "Hi John, here's a few introductions," and then you probably add in another file with your mail and send it to them. Don't use too many fonts and images in your email. It makes it sound too, if you can't do it with an professional app where they can organize your emails and you're doing it just in a basic Gmail format, using too many fonts and images really just clutters your page and makes it sound a bit too amateurish. Don't clutter your signature with unnecessary information. So, don't try to put too many images and so on in your signature as well. And don't write with incorrect grammar and excessive punctuation. And I think excessive punctuation is definitely one of the few things. Is that don't use the ... or too many exclamation marks, because that just sounds, it's really a bit, it gets a bit tedious after you read it for a while, and it sounds almost unprofessional. So really avoid it and keep it clean, simple, to the point, where everything's structured by the paragraph, and you got a good email going on. And so in general, think as if you were writing a mail, not a text. Keep all your inquiries together, keep it well organized, and it's a personal connection that you're making. And really, an email, I think it's 80% the format, so making sure that you've got your signatures correct, making sure that you've got your punctuations, your grammar correct, and also you have a good header, and you have everything kept minimal. You don't want to make it too obnoxiously trying to get their attention, but make it minimal, make it sound confident, and make the layout reflect that, so not everything's cluttered. Making sure that your layout like that is correct and adequate really gives you a really good chance to make a good email, and the body is the rest, but that's only 20%. So refining a little things design wise on your email really can make a big difference in how impactful your email is, so keep that in mind. And thank you. This was a short video. At first I was thinking of releasing it as a live stream, but I think it might be definitely more helpful if I released it and then edited it as a video, so that's way more accessible for you guys to look forward in your free time, and there's not this urgency for you to always trying to catch up on it.